Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. We begin today's show with the story of an 8-year-old Chikamso Mezuwoba who was murdered in cold blood in Rivers State in 2017. She was drugged, sexually assaulted, and her body dismembered by her killers, who are now to die by hanging after 3 years of legal battle. The family of Mezuwoba can now breathe easy as justice is said to have been served. But this judgment has elicited reactions, with many asking, is death penalty really the best form of justice in the case of premeditated murder? What are the possibilities that death penalty really deters people from committing crimes? These are some of the stories we are tracking on the show today, but we'd like to warn you that some of the scenes you are about to see may contain disturbing images. Viewer discretion is advised.
It happened in August 2017. This young happy girl without a care in the world met her gruesome death. She was drugged, sexually assaulted, and her body dismembered. There were no goodbyes, nor an inkling that a fate so violent could befall someone so young. How did it happen and why Chikamso? We know that it was a ritual killing, and what is shocking is that it was close to home. Her assailant was a neighbor and came from the same community. Killings like this are said to be common across many parts of Nigeria and go unreported. For the perpetrators, luck ran out of them as the prime suspect was apprehended by a local vigilante group which handed him over to the police. The suspect managed to escape, was rearrested and returned to Rivers State to stand trial. For nearly 3 years, this family lived in agony. A long drawn-out trial sapped and bled them dry, but they kept it together, hoping for a day that this would all come to an end. The trial begins, and the long, cumbersome process of getting justice. Various interest groups lent their support. In all, the prosecution called 11 witnesses and put before the court 52 exhibits. And finally, what family and human rights groups were waiting for, Judgment Day, and the sentence was the stiffest that could be expected. The suspects, Ifeanyichukwu Dike and Ugochukwu Nwamiro, are to die by hanging. The ex-police officer John Bosco, on whose watch the prime suspect escaped, was given a 1-year sentence for criminal negligence as a result of the suspects fleeing from lawful custody. Chikamso's parents, nearly 3 years after her death, and life is not the same. For security reasons, they agreed to speak with me away from their home. The fear of reprisals and death threats sent them into hiding and a life of fear. This is the last known photograph that she took with her mother and older sister. With justice served, I asked both parents how they feel and what life means after the pain and anguish of losing a daughter so young.
The absence is much, the absence is much, but nothing you can do. What the scripture said, God knows the best, and what he doesn't know cannot happen. So that's the feelings, okay? That's a very big gap to me.
Initially, I never knew that I never knew that maybe I was going to make it to stay without that my child, because she's my last daughter, my last child. These other ones are all in school. I was in the house with just her. She used, I don't know, that girl used to be everything to me. No matter how small she is, she's my messenger. any mediator between mommy and daddy.
Well, of course, God kills, Jesus kills, and also in the scripture, who that kills go by killing and by hanging. So you can't just ask me any question like that. How do I fail? He faced the road of the law. Are you getting me? That's how it's supposed to be. Not me versus the government. They are doing this with the government, not me. But I'm the person that's in hurt. I hand everything to God.
It is justice, my brother. It is. It was written in the Bible. Whoever that kills must be killed. Ifeanyi used to be a very good choir member. He carries cross to the altar in the Anglican church. He forgot all these things and killed my daughter. He knows that whoever that kills will be killed. Ifeanyi knows before he killed Chikamso.
This was one murder that sparked outrage. Protesters took to the streets demanding justice. It also brought to the fore sexual violence and the menace this poses to women and children. In Rivers State, at least 10 complaints are responded to by FIDA, the International Women Lawyers Association.
Even at this point of COVID-19, with the challenges of the lockdown, a lot of calls, a lot of reports on sexual violence. We didn't mind. We even go ahead with the families. We make sure we follow up with police, ensure that these matters are taken to court, and follow to the logical conclusion to ensure that just the same way Chikamso has gotten justice, the same way it will happen to others.
Despite this, officials from interest groups admit that the number of unreported cases is significantly higher, but the prosecution of these cases leaves a lot to be desired.
Normally, immediately you hear the case of rape or defilement, what do you hear? Oh, police are back, this, the way they handle it. And they will even encourage settlement. They encourage settlement. They pressurize the complainants to see that they settle, and they should go and just settle and leave this child, But with the efforts FIDA has put in, the follow-up, and that is why even when you go to most police today, they say, why did you go and report to FIDA? And when you threaten them to say, I want to call FIDA, you see them, they will step up and ensure that they do the needful.
Memories of Chikamso may never go away, but her parents find solace in her siblings.
You can see how she is. She's an angel. She's come and she's gone. God knows the best.
For the family, taking it one day at a time seems to be the only way that they can begin the process of rebuilding their lives. But one thing is certain, it will be tough, and they will lean on one another all the days of their lives. The outcome of this case gives hope to other families and victims of similar offenses, especially sexual violence. But beyond the reactive search for justice, groups like FIDA are asking what other proactive steps can be taken to sharply reduce the number and frequency of these crimes.
Since the transition to democracy in 1999, death sentences are often given but rarely carried out. After 2006, no execution took place until June 2013, when 4 prisoners on death row were hanged. Although about 1,000 other condemned prisoners were awaiting execution at that time. The next execution occurred in 2016, when 3 men were hanged for murder and armed robbery. On 17th of December 2014, after being found guilty of conspiracy to commit mutiny, 54 Nigerian soldiers were sentenced to death by firing squad. The trial was held secretly by a military tribunal. The use of the death penalty in Nigeria has generated debate. In 2017, the Nigerian government rejected the call by Amnesty International to halt the planned execution of some inmates in Lagos State. In May 2020, during the coronavirus pandemic, a court in Lagos used a video conferencing application to issue a death sentence. I had a chat with human rights advocate and lawyer Chino Obiago. He shares his perspective on the dynamics of the death penalty and administration of criminal justice system in Nigeria. We are talking about death sentencing and the serve of justice. What's your take on death sentencing?
Well, we have always said that death penalty is not a humane punishment. It is very severe and irreversible. So when there is a mistake of justice, when there is miscarriage of justice, and death sentence is carried out, the person is dead and is irreversible. So we have always campaigned for the abolition of the death penalty because it does not serve any justice. It is not deterrent, it does not deter criminals from committing offense. It does not provide closure for the victims. It simply introduces violence to society. So it does not serve any purpose. Rather, life imprisonment, which has a possibility that when the person is found to be innocent or there's a miscarriage of justice, then the person can, the punishment can be, the proper remedy can be provided. And every criminal justice system is managed by human beings. There's always possibility of miscarriage of justice. So we know that death penalty does not serve justice at all because it is cruel, inhuman, and degrading.
So you'd rather advocate for what exactly?
I'd rather advocate that, in cases where there's premeditated murder, that the punishment should be life imprisonment without possibility of parole.
Okay.
That is a punishment. That's a human punishment that still serves the purpose of taking away the person from society. If the person is such a offender that cannot be rehabilitated. But remember that death penalty was introduced into our society by the colonial laws. African traditional society does not kill offenders. No matter how heinous the crime is, even for murder, the traditional societies will banish the offender or impose some other punishment, but not to take life. So death penalty, death sentence is very cruel and foreign to our culture, and it does not serve any purpose.
Okay, sir. For the victims, the families of, you talked about premeditated murder. For the families of such victims, do you think that would serve what they truly deserved? What they think the justice would be fair to them?
Well, studies have shown that families of victims don't really want a second death. Studies have shown so. I mean, we're talking about empirical studies, and if you ask many of the victims or people who suffer such loss, in such grief, they really want to know the truth about what happened. They really want to know that that the offender has shown remorse, and they really want to know what are the circumstances of the loss. And not many of them will, not many victims will really want to take life, to beg life for life. And I think that's very empirical study that has been widely read and widely confirmed to be true. But having said that, it is not the victims that decide what is justice. It is the society, it is the government. And every society, most modern democracies have abolished the death penalty. As a matter of fact, Nigeria stands with countries like Sudan or Iran or Pakistan in returning the death penalty. Many countries have actually abolished because there's always possibility of a mistaken conviction.
Okay.
And when that happens, yes, the risk is so high that it is very dangerous to continue to use the death penalty.
And I'm sure you also know that some of our governors, or most of our governors, are they are not willing to sign this death penalty, they are not willing to give their signature to it. And like you just said, you are also of that opinion that death penalty, it shouldn't be it.
the governors are reluctant to sign death warrants because they know that there could be possibility of mistaken conviction. And in the last 10 or so years, only one governor has signed death warrants, which is the former governor of Edo State, Adanso Shimolu. Yes, and even at that, it was found out that one of the persons that were killed was mentally ill and not supposed to be killed under Nigerian law. So, and it's irreversible. Now, that's the point, and that's why most governors are reluctant to sign. And what is the implication? The implication is that if you go to death row prison, it is highly congested. There are close to 2,000 persons waiting on death row in this country. And well, even though some of them, are still processing their appeals to the Supreme Court. But continue to sentence people to death when the governors are not even signing and people are not being executed is itself traumatic and itself cruel and inhuman. So I think that society should face the reality that even the political leaders know that death sentence is wrong and they refuse to sign. So why should courts continue to sentence people to death and dump them in death row prison? Many have stayed there for close to 20 years, are waiting to be executed, and nobody is even thinking of execution. The Nigerian prison does not even have a functional executioner at the moment. So what happens? So the society is simply living in denial that it continues to sentence people to death, yet the proceedings for execution is completely lacking. And that's what we are saying, that we should reform our criminal justice system to reflect the realities.
Okay.
If somebody is... Yes.
Since you're talking about reforming and probably abolishing this, what's the process of abolishing it? What's the process?
Yeah, the process is for the state houses of assembly, because to amend the criminal code and the criminal laws of the states, because death sentence is provided in the criminal code laws for the offenses of murder or the offenses of armed robbery. Is also provided in the Armed Robbery, Robbery and Firearms Tribunal Act. So it's for the state House of Assembly, because most of these offenses are state offenses. You hardly see a federal offense that carries the death penalty apart from treason. But all other offenses carrying the death penalty are state offenses. So it's for state House of Assembly to pass laws to replace death sentences in those provisions of their laws to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. That's a humane alternative, because it serves the purpose of taking the criminal away from society, which is what the death sentence is seeking to do. It will also be a huge deterrent, even if deterrents, those who want to commit offense, don't think about the punishment before they proceed to commit offense. They only think about possibility of apprehension. Okay. So severity of punishment is not a deterrent to crime at all.
Let me take you to Rivers State, the killing of the 8-year-old girl in Rivers State. It took 3 years for the family to get justice. Now, what's your take on delayed justice dispensation by the courts?
Well, that is part of the reforms we are talking about, because, at the moment, the process of trials and prosecution is very tedious, and it took 3 years. Some cases have taken even much longer to be concluded. It is very unfortunate that the incident happened and the little girl was lost her life. But you remember that even those convicted are still pleading their innocence, and that is the reason why it is important that the appeal court should look at the record and be sure that they are already guilty. Remember that even in societies that are said to be advanced, there are always discovery after many years that the person convicted and sentenced is not actually the person who is guilty. I mean, we heard about the Birmingham 13. We've had cases about the innocent persons, the exonerated, even here in this country. So, of course, when there is such a heinous crime as the little girl killed in Rivers State, it is very painful and very traumatic for the families. But we also need to know that justice is also about fairness, about truth. And I think that the justice system needs to live up its responsibility, because any system that wants to take life must also give justice.
Domestic violence has a long and ugly history in Nigeria. Many victims have been scared, killed, and others permanently left numb to the happiness that marriages are meant to be about. But the narrative seems to be changing. Now the social media is helping victims speak out and law enforcement agencies clamping down on culprits. In Lagos, the police have arraigned one Suleiman Mayogun, also known as Afobaje, before a magistrate court in Lagos for allegedly assaulting his wife. The accused was also charged with later posting inciting comments on his Facebook page.
Afobaje allegedly committed the offense on May the 5th at Mayegun Town, Jakonde Estate, Etiosa local government area of Lagos State. He later boasted in a viral Facebook post that he had just beaten up his wife along with the pictures. Following his arrest, he pleaded not guilty on Friday to committing the two acts before Magistrate Folake Oshin at the GIC Taylor Courthouse in Igboshiri. According to the police prosecutor, Shino Oluwadeoye, the actions of the defendant were contrary to and punishable under Section 173 and Section 57, 1A of the criminal laws of the state, which deals with assault and provoking breach of peace by offensive publication. If found guilty, he risks 3 years in jail. Upon application by his lawyer, Mustafa Danesi, the defendant was granted bail in the sum of 500,000 naira, with 2 verified sureties who must also be a cleric and a family member to the defendant. The case is being handled by the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team, in whose custody the wife Omolara has been. According to the team head, Titilola Adeniyi, preliminary investigations conducted revealed that this isn't the first time Mr. Mayagu will beat up his wife.
She has been taken to the hospital. You can see her. She has some plaster on her distance, so she's receiving treatment, and she's also pregnant. So with one kid, she's pregnant. I've been in close contact with her since the incidents. I even called her this morning. Now she said that they are going back to the hospital.
The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team that was on it. So we had to follow up so that they will know that other people are aware of this. And thank God that the Lagos State is involved, so I'm sure justice will be served.
Afobaje was arrested after the Lagos State Agency alerted the police in Area J. But the AIG in Zone 2 says residents can also make reports to the police about cases of sexual and gender-based violence.
If you see anything in your community, that is why that structure of community policing is the best way of solving crime and criminality. It is quite a mundane issue. If you see something wrong in your community, try to get, even if it is your traditional bali, your traditional ruler, try to get to the nearest police station or any security outfit and pass over that information to that outfit. Even to a media house, you can pass over that information, because if it gets to the right place, it will get to the security agencies, and then that issue can be tackled and that issue can be analyzed and handled.
Trial continues on June the 22nd.
Online scammers are taking advantage of the fear surrounding the coronavirus pandemic. Here are some tips to help you keep scammers at bay. Do not open letters or mails from unknown persons who claim to be health experts. Be mindful of fake news, deliberate misinformation, and avoid circulating unverified messages. Be wary of scammers who use names of prominent companies to create fraudulent websites. Use strong passwords to secure your email and social media handles. Educate your family, especially your children, about how to stay safe online and offline. If you become a victim, ensure prompt report to the police.
That's our package for today. You can join us for more updates on all our social media platforms at TVC News NG using the hashtag CrimeWatch. Now remember, coronavirus spreads easily from person to person when people gather together. Endeavor to maintain physical distancing and put on face masks whenever you are in public. Do have a crime-free week. I'm Ivy Kanu.